reading. You are stepping into another world. Behind these dynamic characters, epic battles, and emotional moments are hidden techniques developed over decades by professional mangakas. But how do they do it? Hey, welcome back to Illustream, and today we are diving into the secret techniques professional mangakas use so you can bring your stories to life in ways you've only dreamed of. Creating a manga or comic comes with a set of problems that you need to tackle and solve as the creator, ranging from creating interesting characters to designing the world of your manga and more. The main question that needs to be answered when you make a manga or comic, or even just write a story, is how do I keep the audience engaged throughout the whole thing? Each chapter of your manga does not just need to be interesting, but it should also move the plot along with it. Therefore, for people starting out, how do you make an engaging first chapter of your manga? At this point, the questions may seem huge and daunting, so let's fix that. In order to understand and learn how to create good mangas, we must look at the professionals who did it and achieved success. For this video, we will be looking at and analyzing the techniques used in mangas like Naruto, Promised Neverland, and My Hero Academia. Before we begin, the topics discussed in this video are more thoroughly explained by these videos from SDPad, who has helped me in my own manga creating journey. Now back to the video. Mangas follow a structure, and if you look it up online, you will be buried under an avalanche of information. That is why we will be focused on the mangas I mentioned before and analyzing why they became successful. The general structure of a manga's first chapter usually begins with a prologue. A prologue is a sort of introduction to the world your manga is set in, where you briefly explain some information about how the world works, where it is, or what time period it is in, or even if it's a fantasy world. You could even make the prologue about the specific situation your manga starts off with. To understand this better, let's look at how Naruto did it. The first page of Naruto Volume 1 is the prologue, where the author tells that once there was a nine-tailed demon fox who could cause landslides and tsunamis by just moving its tails. It talks about how the great shinobi clans gathered to fight this menace and how one shinobi sacrificed himself to seal away this monster. Right off the bat, we can see how the author Masashi Kishimoto introduced us to the world of Naruto. Through the prologue, we were told this is a world of ninjas and monsters. This engages the viewers into thinking, ninjas, like how does that work? Or where did the monster come from? And all of this is done through just one single page. Moving on to the Promised Neverland, we begin by getting introduced to the Gracefield House, which is an orphanage, by the main character who seems to be narrating over this prologue. The main character, Emma, says, "The lady I fondly call mom is not my mom, and the children I live with are not my siblings." So far, these dialogues seem pretty normal because that is what you would expect in a normal orphanage. But this is quickly continued by the main character saying, "And I am an orphan, or so I thought." It's like, boom, that is the hook right there, which makes us go, what? Is the main character not an orphan? And if not, then what are they? How did she end up in an orphanage? And in contrast to Naruto, the prologue of Promised Neverland can be argued to be not just one page, as the story continues with the main character describing how the day begins in the orphanage. But what is clear is how the authors of the two mangas, each in their own way, engage the viewers by giving them information about the world or the main character right in the beginning. It is also important to note that they do not give away too much. Writing paragraphs upon paragraphs of how your world works may not sit well with the reader, who might just get bored. So, to illustrate this point even further, we have My Hero Academia, which starts off differently than Promised Neverland and is a little similar to how Naruto began. That is, by introducing the world the manga is in. But in My Hero Academia, the prologue is a bit longer than Naruto's one page. My Hero Academia begins with a main character, Deku, talking about how he learned a harsh lesson at the age of 4, that people aren't born equal. We can see young Deku trying to save a kid from getting bullied and getting beaten up. This makes the viewer naturally turn the page to see what happens to Deku. But we are greeted by a white city scene with a big humanoid monster in the distance and interesting characters in the panel. This tips us off that this world has something different and unique. Therefore, the readers are further engaged and read more. Capitalizing on this opportunity, the author then gives us a story of how this world changed when a baby in China was born who happened to be bioluminescent, that is, a glowing baby. We then get to know that 80% of the world's population ended up with superhuman abilities. This begs the question, what does a world with so many superhumans look like? We can see how this prologue of My Hero Academia eased us into its world and kept us hooked. At this point, natural curiosity would compel the reader to finish the whole chapter. So, what can you take away from these examples? When writing your own manga's prologue, focus on giving just enough information to spark curiosity, introduce a key aspect of your world, drop an intriguing question, or show a glimpse of the main character's challenge. Whether you reveal a dramatic event like in Naruto, raise subtle mysteries about the setting like in The Promised Neverland, or establish the big unique rules of your world like in My Hero Academia, remember, your goal is to hook readers immediately without overwhelming them. Think of the prologue as an invitation. Offer hints, not handbooks, and pull your audience into your story from the very first page. Now that you have learned about the prologue, let us move on to the next key aspect of a manga, which is conflict, or if you like, a challenge. The conflict in manga can be the struggle of your main character, where your main character wants to achieve something but there is an obstacle stopping them. That is your conflict, or you can say challenge. The journey of your main character overcoming their obstacles or not overcoming it is what your readers will be engaged in after the prologue. To illustrate how important and effective this is in the beginning, we will now one by one look at the examples by the professionals. In Naruto, right after the prologue, we see the main character Naruto causing trouble by vandalizing the monument of the Hokages with graffiti. We see everyone being angry at Naruto for his mischief. Moving on, his teacher makes him clean up the graffiti and tells him he can't go before cleaning up every last drop of paint. Naruto then replies cheekily, "It's not like anyone's waiting at home for me." Then for one brief panel we see Naruto hiding his face and his sensei Iruka take on a serious expression, which tips us off that Naruto is an orphan. Taking in this new information from that one panel alone, the reader realizes that Naruto's act of vandalism in broad daylight is just his way of seeking attention, because he is lonely. The theory that Naruto just wants attention because he is lonely is further backed up later in the manga just a few pages after, when Naruto says he wants to surpass the previous Hokages and become the greatest Hokage ever, and that everyone will have to respect him at last. This tells us that Naruto wants the approval from his fellow people in the village, but what is stopping him from getting the love and attention he seeks? What made him go to such lengths to seek attention? Well, this is the mystery and conflict that keeps the reader turning the pages. In Promised Neverland, however, the conflict takes a few pages to build and for the reader to realize. After the prologue, we see what the children in the orphanage do on a normal day-to-day basis. We see Emma, the main character, who is one of the oldest in the orphanage, at 11 years old, playing with the younger kids. They all share a bond like family and we see them having breakfast. All is normal and wholesome, but in between the heartwarming interactions, we can spot a few cold and possibly dark details. While Emma describes their mornings, she mentions how they have ID numbers on their backs, which is not something a normal orphanage would have. Emma also mentions she thinks of the orphanage as her home and everyone as their family, and she never doubted that. What she says next is, for 10 years. This last part is a major hint that something changed and that change is going to happen soon. The manga in the first pages seems happy and normal, but under the surface we can feel something is off. This is what makes Promised Neverland the best of the best, in my opinion. We also see the orphans taking aptitude tests with questions that seem unnecessary for children at that age. We feel the conflict brewing, but it isn't here yet, and that's what keeps us engaged. Then one of the younger kids in the orphanage gets assigned a foster home, a girl named Connie. Emma and the rest are sad to see her go. After Connie leaves, Emma realizes she has left her favorite toy bunny. Emma then concludes that she will go to the grate, breaking one of the rules, and give Connie her bunny before she leaves. Therefore, Emma and Norman go to the gate to look for Connie. And by the way, Norman is another 11-year-old at the orphanage who is Emma's friend. Now, they find a truck parked at the gate, but they see no one around, so they check for Connie in the truck. What Emma sees in the back of the truck has her paralyzed. She calls for Norman. Together, they see Connie lying dead, with a flower sprouting from her belly. What the actual fuck? The foreshadowing of something being off since the first page finally reveals itself, and it does not disappoint. The conflict of the Promised Neverland is soon revealed after Emma and Norman discover Connie's dead body. They hide under the truck when demons, and yes, I said demons, come by. They overhear their conversation and realize their orphanage is a farm that supplies quality human meat to demons. They find out that the lady they call mother is nothing but a shepherd of the farm, tending to the cattle. When I first heard that this is the plot of Promised Neverland, that is when I decided to read it. That's the power of a good conflict. It sparks natural curiosity in the viewer. So, moving on from the haunting reveal in The Promised Neverland, we look at My Hero Academia. Unlike the building of tension in Promised Neverland, in My Hero Academia we're introduced to the conflict from the very start. Right after the prologue, where Deku talks about how the world has people with abilities or powers, or quirks as they call it in the manga, we soon see that Deku is getting bullied in class and teased by others because he seemingly does not have a quirk. But we also see that despite that, Deku still wants to be a hero and get into this high school where they teach students to become professional heroes. The conflict is pretty simple. The main character wants to be something, a hero, and the obstacle they have to cross is, well, in this case, having no superpowers. So, how do you bring captivating conflict into your own manga? Take inspiration from these masters of these mangas: Naruto, Promised Neverland, and My Hero Academia. Give your main character a goal, something they desperately want, and place a clear obstacle in their path. You can reveal this upfront like Naruto and My Hero Academia, putting your character's struggle at the forefront, or build tension and let the challenge slowly unfold, as seen in The Promised Neverland. The key is to make your readers care. Let them see what's at stake, hint at secrets or dangers, and show both the internal and external hurdles your character faces. By establishing a compelling challenge right after the prologue, you'll give your readers a reason to root for your character and keep turning the pages. At this point, the first chapter of a manga has a prologue and a conflict. The only thing missing is the final resolution to your chapter. Mind you, this isn't the resolution to the conflict you introduced, but a way to end the chapter and hook your readers for the next chapter you might or might not release. Let's look at Naruto. The manga established that he seeks love and approval from people around him, but one of the main characters in this chapter, aside from Naruto, is Iruka Sensei. We see that in the manga, Naruto has to go through a graduation test overseen by Iruka Sensei, and Naruto fails spectacularly. He sees his peers move on and become ninjas as they receive a ninja headband. Naruto now feels more left out than ever. This leads him to being influenced by another teacher in their academy, who later turns out to be an enemy spy, who manipulates Naruto into stealing a secret scroll. Once Naruto does this, a whole lot of people are pissed off. So Iruka Sensei feels he has personal responsibility for Naruto as he is his student. Therefore, Iruka Sensei sets out to find Naruto, and what follows is a battle between Iruka and the teacher who manipulated Naruto. The teacher also told Naruto the truth about why everyone despised him since he was a child. As it turns out, the demon fox in the prologue was sealed away inside Naruto, so he became a walking symbol of the demon who caused havoc in the Leaf Village. This truth shatters Naruto as the teacher continues to tell him that he won't ever be loved or accepted by anyone. In response to this, Iruka Sensei defends Naruto and tells him he is proud to have a student like Naruto and that Naruto is not defined by the demon sealed in him. This leads us to a bittersweet ending after Naruto beats the shit out of that other teacher. This end to the chapter is perfect as we crave for what happens next. And even if the series was not continued, we could be content with the ending. On the other hand, we have The Promised Neverland, who continue on their style of suspense and mystery. We see that after Emma and Norman realize they are not orphans in an orphanage, but instead are cattle in a farm. The rest of the manga after this realization is short. We see Emma and Norman coping with this horror. Norman puts on a confident face for Emma, who is initially traumatized and is in denial. Emma recovers after this and they decide on acting normal so as to not tip off Mother that they broke the rules. The next morning, we see them acting normal, but the narration by Emma towards the end talks about what their reality in the orphanage is. The chapter ends with Emma saying, "The reality of this place is that it is a farm and we are blank." This open-ended dialogue acts like a cliffhanger and is a crude and simple method, but it works very well. The reader starts to think about what will happen to Emma and Norman now that they have seen the truth, and just as we ask this question, the chapter ends. Now, in contrast to The Promised Neverland and similar to Naruto, My Hero Academia has a similar, bittersweet ending. The conflict for Deku was that he wanted to be a hero even though he did not have any powers. After being presented with the conflict, we see Deku get attacked by a villain, who is then defeated by Deku's idol and favorite hero, All Might. After getting rescued by All Might, Deku asks him the one question he has always been afraid of: can someone be a hero without quirks? To this, All Might replies that realistically it is not possible and safe for someone to be a hero without quirks, as they would be risking their lives for nothing. Deku is absolutely shattered when he hears this from All Might, who he looked up to since he was a child. Shortly after, the villain that gets beaten by All Might manages to grab Deku's bully from school. Seeing this happen, Deku rushes into the scene without thinking when he says his legs moved automatically. All Might witnesses this act of courage from Deku, who tries to save his friend and goes to help Deku out. Once the villain is defeated, All Might turns to Deku and tells him that he taught him something he had forgotten, that is, that anyone can be a hero. This makes Deku very emotional, and in the last panel we see Deku narrating again, and he says, "I forgot to mention this, but this is the story of how I became the greatest hero." The wholesome ending plus the last line from Deku makes us wonder, how did he become the greatest when he has no powers? And just at that point the chapter ends. So as you wrap up your first chapter, think of the ending as leaving a door slightly ajar, a moment that hints at bigger stories, waiting just beyond. The masters show us that you don't need to solve every problem or answer every question right away. Maybe it's an emotional breakthrough, a sudden revelation, or an unresolved choice that leaves your readers eager to see what unfolds next. Instead of tying everything up, create a sense of momentum and possibility, a taste of the journey ahead that lingers, pulling your audience back for more. Let your final pages echo with anticipation, so your story stays with them long after they've closed the book. In conclusion, crafting your own manga isn't about following a rigid formula. It's about blending storytelling, structure, and emotion in a way that's uniquely yours. We have seen how the grades hooks us from the prologue, pull us into conflict, and leave us with endings that haunt us until the next chapter. Now, it's your turn. Whether you're sketching your first pages or rewriting your 100th draft, remember, every story has the potential to resonate if you dare to put your world, your characters, and your passion on the page. Don't just imitate. Experiment, create, and let your imagination run wild. Start with a spark, build to a challenge, and finish with a moment that begs for more. Who knows, the next legendary manga could begin with the lines you draw today. Thanks for watching and keep creating. If you found this video helpful, then drop a like and comment, and subscribing helps too.